We've been here a little over 5 years. And, I think one of the biggest goals for any sneaker shop is to have their own collaboration
Mm-hmm.
with any sneaker company. I think actually I think that's kind of that stamp of approval from
Mm-hmm.
your brand partners where it's like, you know what, we believe enough in you where we believe you can tell a story and sell a shoe out.
Yeah.
And not only can you sell it here, but you can sell it in other stores. So we've had some preliminary talks with brands about, what that storytelling would look like what we would want to do, like what kind of models we would want to deal with. But can you kind of walk us through that process as an influencer? Like, for one, a lot of people don't know how collaborations work, period. And I'm interested to see if it's a difference between how they would handle it as a store compared to influencer and how you got it.
Yeah, no. So, like I said, how I kind of got even on the radar was I was doing these focus groups, and this is how like I try to tell people all the time. Everything matters. Like everything comes full circle. Like no matter what, like you should just do honest business because you never know who's watching, who's paying attention. So I was doing these focus groups, man. My whole social media looked like I was just reselling sneakers. I was doing stuff. But what I would do is I'll stay in touch with these people. Like get their IGs, get their numbers. We'll go to Portland, try to do lunch or try to take 15 minutes of their time. And sometimes that 15 minutes didn't feel like you accomplished nothing, especially when you flew across the country. But it's also like you stayed on their radar. When I made that transition of like I'm gonna start selling hats and I'm gonna start selling stuff, like you gotta remember these same people follow you, so it's like you just continuing to navigate through this industry, trying to make some money, trying to feed your family, but do stuff. But I was doing these pop-ups with these hats, I was flying to different states, I was doing stuff. And one of my guys I used to meet with that worked on Nike Air Max, he was just like, yo, like, he always was in my corner, like, yo, keep doing what you're doing, stay positive. Like if people are even asking you to talk, you're the smartest person in the room. Always just giving me some game, like. And he pretty much was like, yo, like I was telling somebody about you. I was telling him how you doing everything with hats and stuff. Like he works at Saucony or whatever. So he was like, I'm not sure what the opportunity would be or if there is an opportunity, but would you like to speak to them? And at that point, I was already getting a bunch of shoes from like New Balance and Solomon and stuff, but it was never no conversation about anything bigger than that. Like, I think a lot of kids in the community, like their goal is just to get on somebody's seating list. So if anything, I'm winning. I'm getting like a few shoes every so often. I ain't got to pay for the good stuff. Like I'm getting stuff that like if I decide it don't fit right, I could sell it, make a little bit of bread. Like, so he was just like, yo, I don't know what this might be, but maybe they want you to design some clothes or something, but I could start the conversation, man. I got on a Zoom. It was probably like 3 people on it. They were just like, we see what you're doing, and, we want to work with people who kind of like have like a different way of thinking. Cause at the end of the day, it's like, if you're working with like a certain store, like, sometimes the storytelling is gonna, you got to figure out how to do all the storytelling, but it's still gonna release at the store. Like, man, I was going to release my hats on the beach. I was going to release my hats in the middle of a park. I was going to release my hats on a train or just very unconventional stuff. It's like, we just want somebody to think out the box and stuff. And he was just like, I know, like, just like the Michael Jordan Air movie, he was like, if we not the biggest company, and we know a lot of people, you may want to work with other people, but if you want to do anything with us, we'll love to kind of work with you. And I think from that point, I started to, like, I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't have a Saucony in my closet. Like, I was just like, what would I do? What would I be interested in? What shoes I'm feeling? We went to the office. I was still looking at a bunch of stuff. Like, I don't know, bro. Like, I don't know what I would wear. Like, I'm not really like into like the grandpa silhouettes and stuff like that. Like, I still don't know. But then when I seen the Gritazora, like I didn't have nothing familiar about that shoe. Like, it didn't look like a Jordan 1. It didn't look like a New Balance. It didn't look like any brand's shoe. So I was like, if I created my story, I want to create it on a silhouette like that. And they was just like, like, what about these? And would you want to do this? And I was just like, nah, I just feel like I'm just gonna be honest. Like, I think the opportunity for me to kind of prove myself in the industry would have to be on this shoe. And we did like a round of samples, and just like it kind of blew them away with how like efficient I was with like color picking and fabrics and stuff. And like, I think the rest is history, kind of with just having to, and it's everything you probably think of, like having to to explain to them why I want to use this color or why I want to use this or why I want to use that. But they were super, super supportive, and it almost like challenged me to think like, damn, like of course there's a lot of creatives what they like waiting on like Nike to call them and stuff, but I don't know if Nike would have been able to let me pick through a whole category and be able to choose the shoe I want to do. So like I may have been spoiled by my riches, and I'm happy because that was my first ever shoe, and it probably set my reputation for the rest of my career on like remember what he did with that one.
Yeah. Man, so that's interesting to hear that too, because do you feel like that could be a double-edged sword? It's like, yeah, my first one was so high. It's just like when an artist drop a fire album, like, it's like, oh, you got the sophomore jinx now. Yeah. Obviously you don't, because you 3 shoes in and all 3 of them are sold out. Yeah. But do you feel like that pressure from the first one was like a motivator, or you kind of was like, all right, well,
to me it's the motivator, because it's almost like, somebody told me it's like the equivalent of winning a Grammy for your first album. Like, you're not gonna feel like the job is done until you feel like this is another winner. Like, where I think a lot of times, like a lot of brands or a lot of even collaborative strategy might be like, this one is gonna be, this one might be cool, but the next one's gonna be crazy. Like, I feel like how I've been able to kind of crack into the industry, everybody's like, that first shoe. And I feel like even my last shoe had a lot of overshadowing by my first shoe still. Like, people are still talking about the first shoe. Right. Still talking about where they want to place it on the end of the year list, while I'm still trying to sell pairs of these. Like I'm still trying to sell pairs of these, and people still like, yo, but I need that one, and I need this one, I need that one. And where's this fall in the list and stuff? So I just think it's a good responsibility, because at the end of the day, I'm working on a brand that I feel like a year ago, before I dropped my first shoe, like it was probably more shoes on sale than it was like any hype. So it's like, I do feel like it's like, just to be able to be in these conversations, man, I'm happy to have that responsibility, because people would kind of overlook it if it was any other way.
No, for sure. So was there a huge difference, like you said, how you picked the Grid Azure, because it's just like, it was such a unique silhouette where it's like, this don't look like anything. Like, so what was the big difference between picking that one and the model you did your second collaboration with? Like,
yeah, man, I think Saucony's just in a situation where, like, of course you go to these type of brand meetings, you're gonna see some stuff that people haven't seen yet, and just seeing these certain shoes on the table is like, man, like the Grid Azure was hard, man. It was hard to be able to, like, I didn't know how people might feel about it till I put it on the internet. Like I know you looking at that Omni, I know people gonna be like, that's one that a little bit more wearable, especially with the Grid Shadow 2. Like, Grid Shadow 2 reminded me of, like, everybody loves New Balances, and everybody loved like just shoes that kind of like a little bit more wearable. So I was like, all right, if I'm gonna do something that's crazy, let me do something a little bit more wearable. So like, these shoes are like, they have big plans on them. Like, they like, yo, who can we get collabs on? Like, how can they drop? Like, hopefully China and Asia starts buying more pairs and stuff. So I'm like, damn, I need to do one of those. And like, to be honest, like, what I was able to do with the first shoe is kind of like, it's at least giving me some grace to kind of ask for, like, if I want to work on something, they'd be like, all right, check your email, and they'll send me like the Photoshop file or something, and like, then the process starts from there. But like, it's a gift and a curse kind of for that.
Right.